go. How's it going, everybody? You can ask me anything about politics. I am here to answer all and any of your questions about politics, regardless of if they are simple or complicated. I am here to answer your questions about politics. Welcome to the live stream. There is no such thing as a dumb question. I am here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know anything about it. There was a time when I didn't know anything about politics, and I was always really worried that I was going to sound stupid by asking a question, but you don't have to worry about that here because I do not judge people for not knowing things. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. No such thing as a dumb question. There's not going to be any roasting. There's not going to be any judgments. You don't got to worry about, if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of squishy cuck libtard, or if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA fanatic. There's no judgments here. I will not judge your questions one way or the other. You can just ask me whatever you like, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that things are weird in politics right now, so I'm sure people have a lot of questions about what certain things mean and what things are happening. But I can even ask simple questions like, what are the three branches of government, or what's reconciliation, and stuff like that. So I am available to answer all of your questions about politics. No judgments, no debating, no roasting. It is just, I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. So I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know anything about it. You don't got to worry about getting judged for not knowing things. You don't got to worry about, if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA lunatic, or if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of cuck libtard. There's no judgments here whatsoever. It is just honest, good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I hope everybody's having, what the fuck day is it even? A Wednesday? I'm on the road right now, so time gets a little amorphous when I'm traveling. So yeah, I hope that it is Wednesday, and I hope y'all are having a good Wednesday, and I hope y'all are staying sane out there. But yeah, I am here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. So let me know. Jack says, do you think Canada is going to be the 51st state? No, I do not. Special Shay T says, I have to tell you that you have really great hair. That's interesting. I was just complaining to myself, to nobody, about how I didn't like my current haircut. So I got to get this thing fucking taken care of here. My hair's been a nightmare ever since I moved to the West Coast. All right, well, so we haven't gotten any. We only had one question about politics so far, and it was a pretty easy one. All right, Moderate says, will MAGA revolt if a bill similar to the House bill comes out of the Senate with $4 trillion deficits? Probably not. The value of the MAGA base is that it really doesn't matter what you do to them because they are fully plugged into right-wing propaganda. Now, this is not to denigrate MAGA voters as being less intelligent. Statistically, they are less educated. Like, if you are a Republican voter, you statistically are more likely to have not graduated from college or high school. But again, that doesn't mean that a person is dumb. I think this can happen to any one of us, that if we are fully enveloped in our media environments that are telling us that the deficits are because of immigrants and trans kids and poor people and people of color, then you will believe it and you will continue voting Republican. Let's see here. Lexi9235 says, can you explain how tariffs will affect us and the economy? Tariffs, the economy is a pretty complicated beast, but pretty much every economist agrees that there is a good way to do tariffs and a stupid way to do tariffs. And what the Trump administration is doing is the stupid way. The stupid way is you just kind of try to isolate your country from imports from other countries by making it too expensive. And, by doing that, you kind of cripple America by making it less able to access resources from other country, be it rare minerals or, already made computer components. If we are talking about a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, if you talk to car manufacturers, they will tell you that sometimes parts for a single car will go over those borders a dozen times or something, and they're like, I gotta pay a 25% tariff on that part every single time it crosses the border. That's gonna make every car so much more expensive. What we can anticipate is that tariffs are gonna make things more expensive for the American consumer, which is bad news because we are already struggling under a cost of living crisis. It is going to make it easier for other countries to kind of lap us technologically because it's going to be easier and cheaper for them to get certain materials. It's going to make food more expensive. It's going to mean that farmers here in America are not going to be able to sell as many goods to other countries because when they put a tariff on us, they're going to put a tariff back on. When we put a tariff on them, they're going to put a tariff back on us. So, people are going to be making less money because we're not going to be able to sell our goods to other countries. That's just like a little some broad strokes about possible side effects. But that is pretty much what every economist agrees is going to happen. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. For those of you who are just joining us, I'll give you the quick introduction. You can ask me anything that you like. Any good faith questions will get a good faith answer. You don't got to worry about getting judged or debated or ridiculed for not knowing things. If you ask a question and it is clear from your question that you are a left-wing person, there's not going to be any judgments or debates. If the way you ask the question makes it clear that you are a right-wing person, there will be no judgments or debates. The only time I get a little spicy is if someone's being spicy first. So let's see here. Hunter3299 says, why did the Dems vote against no tax on tips and overtime? Hunter, that is not in the Republican tax bill. The Republican tax bill just is cuts for social services like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and massive tax cuts for giant corporations and tax increases on everybody in the middle class and below. Let's see here. Buddy Gaston says, why do we not want balanced trade? I mean, I guess balanced trade would be a good thing, but the tariffs are not going to accomplish that. User whole bunch of numbers says, the average white man who didn't grow up wealthy has no benefit nor guilt to vote Dem. I don't know what your main... The average white man who didn't grow up wealthy has no benefit nor guilt to vote Democrat. I mean, I think that people should vote Democrat because it makes your life better, not because of any guilt that you might have. I mean, I would also say that even a poor white person growing up in America probably has an easier life than the average poor black person growing up in America or the average black woman growing up in America because, you don't have to worry about getting, executed by the police for no fucking reason. All right, let's see here. Casey says, why should we send money, arms to nations like Ukraine, Israel, etc. for nothing in return? We do get things in return when we send weapons and money to other countries. It just depends on what the situation is. I personally don't think that we should be sending money and weapons to Israel because Israel has been found to have committed war crimes against the people in Palestine. And we already have a law on our books that says we're not allowed to send money and weapons to countries that are guilty of doing war crimes. But as far as Ukraine goes, sending money to Ukraine is incredible because Russia is an adversarial nation. Like, they are trying to destroy America and they're trying to occupy other territory that does not belong to them. They're trying to take over other sovereign nations. And, Ukraine did not ask to be a part of this conflict. They did not ask to be the bulwark against Russian aggression, but this is the position that they are in, and they have taken up the call, and they are doing, an incredible job of not only protecting their border, but decimating the Russian army and resources. Until Trump decided that we were going to side with Russia for some fucking reason, I know why, because of corruption and idiocy, we were doing an excellent job of making Russia and the oligarchs that are in charge of that country feel a price for invading that country. And we were protecting Europe and, the rest of free society. But if we were to allow Ukraine to fall to Russia, it would strengthen Russia. And you don't want to strengthen autocracies. You don't want to strengthen dictatorships because that encourages other dictatorships. And when you have dictatorships, you don't have things like rule of law or accountability or oversight or checks and balances or fair elections and things like that. And that just creates more global instability and chaos. And we try to avoid that at all costs. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Casey says, appreciate the answer. I agree for the most part. Thoughts on the mineral deal under Trump? I'm glad that Zelensky and Ukraine were playing hardball for a little while, but I mean, they really do need us. Europe seems like they are stepping up in lieu of America's absence in assisting Ukraine. But, I don't know what the final deals of the mineral rights deal are. The first version of deal was basically Ukraine gets nothing and we get all of their minerals, which kind of seems like a shitty deal for them. So I'm glad they said no to that. if it's a less shitty deal, that means that they get some protection from us or some weapons and resources from us in exchange. Like, I mean, it seems only fair, I guess, but I just think I think it is morally bankrupt for the Trump administration to be doing this kind of a deal, to make sure, oh, we got to get our thing, instead of just doing the right thing. Let's see here. Don said, Trump made deal with Putin that we get minerals from the areas they take over. Yeah, that's pretty shitty also, like we're going to start doing deals with Russia again. Like the entire point of the sanctions that we had put on them was to put pressure on them to stop this illegal invasion, but now we're just going to start doing deals with them and we're going to welcome them back into the global community. Like, make it make sense, guys. Let's see here. The Warthog says, do you agree with USAID cuts? No, I do not. Not even a little bit. The USAID program, it is good for Americans. It is good for everybody. It is, by cutting USAID, you are increasing the odds that we will get dangerous diseases here in the country. You are giving more power to terrorist organizations. You are taking money away from American farmers. It is just, yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. We should not be doing that at all. Let's see here. Max says, hey, buddy, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Yeah, but you can still do war crimes against a population that is being controlled by a terrorist organization the same way that Hamas has done war crimes against the people of Israel. And I don't think we'd be sending money and weapons to Hamas either, but we're not. We're only sending money to Israel. Let's see here. Belter Sanchez says, Putin is being played. I don't think so. Maddie Livingston says, are you Trump or Kamala? I'm neither. I'm Jared, but I do support Democrats. Chris says, thoughts on Doge? Doge is a scam. It is a con. It is a grift. It is taking money and resources away from the 99% and giving them to the top 1%. It is getting rid of agencies that were investigating companies, specifically companies owned by Elon Musk, and protecting people. The Consumer Financial Protection Board, for every dollar that we spent on that, we were returning 20 times that to the American citizens. For every dollar that we spent on IRS agents, we were returning that to American citizens by going after rich tax cheats. So yeah, all of these cuts that they are saying, they're not finding any fraud, they're not finding any inefficiencies. All they're doing is shutting down programs that help the people so that the billionaire class can become more rich and powerful. Z Hut says, when you be president of America? Probably never. Let's see here. Mark3104 says, move to Mexico and drop me a card. I don't know what you mean by drop me a card. Like, say hi when I'm there? All right. Madge says, are green card holders still safe as of what is happening right now? So I don't know specifically if green card holders are safe, because I'm not sure what legislation they're pushing as far as like which immigrants are allowed to stay and which ones aren't. But here's the thing. Here's the bad news, is that the Trump administration does not care about what is legal. They do not care about who is actually here illegally. They do not care about which immigrants are guilty of committing crimes or which ones aren't. They said they were only going to be deporting criminals. I think something like, I forget the exact number, but I want to say something like 65% of the people that they have deported already have no criminal record. Some of the people that ICE has rounded up have been veterans, have been citizens, have been Native Americans. So in the sense of, are they legally justified in deporting people who have green cards? That I do not know. But I do know that they do not care if you have a green card. If they want to deport you, they will, because there's like nobody that can stop them, really. Let's see here. Fist emoji says, why doesn't MAGA see it yet? They are, they're fully enmeshed in right-wing propaganda, and propaganda is a hell of a drug. And, I say that to not throw any shade, because there but for the grace of God go I. If we were born into those communities and only watching Fox News and getting all of our information off of social media, and all of our friends on social media were also conservative, then we would also not be seeing the actual news. Cho Laona says, I believe this administration shows the true nature of Americans. I hope that you don't, because only 23% of Americans voted for this. There were something like 85 million Americans who just did not vote. And they got tricked into thinking that not voting was a better move than voting, or that it was very difficult for them to vote. Like, the economy that we're living under right now means that sometimes people have to work like 3 jobs. People are really struggling right now. And so I have a lot of sympathy for people who who their job makes it really difficult for them to vote. But I would hope that they would see what's going on now and become motivated to vote. But our voter participation in this country has been pathetic for a really long time. 2020 was a high watermark for us, and it was still only 65% of the population, which, I can wag my finger at that all I want, and I hope that I am convincing people who were not voters to become voters. But, I hope that people recognize that this is not America. The same way that I recognize that Netanyahu is not Israel and Putin is not Palestine. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Dan says they should make voting mandatory like in Australia, in my opinion. I mean, I like that idea theoretically. I have seen some studies to suggest that when people are forced to vote, they tend to vote more conservative for some reason. I don't know. That's what happened in Australia, at least. I saw John Oliver talk about it. And I also think that Americans kind of have an aversion to being mandated to do anything. I believe in voting, and I believe that it is smart for everybody to vote. I would worry about the political futures of any politicians who were responsible for mandating participation. Fog War Productions, good to see you again. In a previous live, you suggested rural Americans should vote Democrat. Why? I mean, I think everybody should vote Democrat. Democrats just have a better platform. They have better policies. They have, more consideration for the plight of rural America. I can think of a couple of issues off the top of my head. Like, there is currently a drain in medical resources in rural America because of the Trump abortion bans. Nobody wants to be a gynecologist in Florida anymore. Nobody wants to be an OR doctor in Texas because they're being told by their, state governments that if they're not allowed to save women's lives anymore if saving their life means giving them a medically necessary abortion. And so we're seeing that. We're seeing in, closing down the Green New Deal, not the Green New Deal, closing down the Inflation Reduction Act. All of these green technology manufacturing jobs are leaving these small towns. These small towns were being revitalized by the Biden administration, and now those contracts are being canceled by Doge, and now those people are fucking shit out of luck, and they don't have those jobs anymore, People in rural America, they all have friends and family who are veterans, and Doge is cutting services to veterans, including services that keep people from, unaliving themselves. It is, it's a fucking nightmare. Cutting USAID means that farmers in rural America aren't going to be making as much money. That's just a couple off the top of my head. Let's see here. Lucas says, thoughts on Palestine? I think that Israel has been a really bad neighbor to Palestine for a long time. If you look at a map of how Palestine has shrunk and Israel has grown over the years, it's pretty obvious that one of those countries is being bad and annexing territory that does not belong to them. Now, do I think that means that that doesn't mean that I am pro-Hamas. That does not mean that I support what Hamas is doing. Two wrongs don't make a right. I don't think that Hamas should be doing war crimes against the people of Israel. I don't think that the Israeli government should be doing war crimes against the people of Palestine. I think that we need to facilitate peace in that region, and I think that part of that peace means cutting off support to Netanyahu because he is no longer working towards a two-state solution. Let's see here. Dan says Israel has gained most of the land via wars that Arabs started. I'll give you this, Dan. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how accurate that is. That is not to say that it's not accurate, but I somewhat dipped out of the history of that region because I got tired of the we were here first, no, we were here first, no, you started it, no, you started it kind of back and forth. Where I'm just like, can we just end the fighting now, please? Can we just let people live in their fucking houses? But I have seen where we are talking about most of that land was taken over by Israel because of wars that the Arabs started. I will say, I've seen way too many news stories about Palestinians being kicked out of their homes so that Israeli citizens can move in. And so even if a certain portion of that land was taken over after a war that somebody else started, it's still not their land. I appreciate that you do not want to live in a place where everybody is mad at you and constantly shooting rockets at you. And so you are expanding your country as a way of sort of securing yourself. But, the people who were there before they were there are not happy about you being there. And so maybe, and I mean, I can't speak, I don't have to live there. Like, I don't have to deal with the potential violence and, potential rocket attacks and shit like that. But my opinion is that the stronger nation needs to do the work of healing the divide. And Israel has not been doing that, And I know that there's a lot of people who are very, aggressively pro-Israel and think that probably what I'm saying is really shitty, but that's just how I feel. Like if you are the stronger country, when you fight back the forces that are trying to invade you and kill you, don't take land. Just say, we understand that you're upset, but allow us to be good neighbors to you. Let's see here. Dan says, well, historically, if you lose land in a war, it's not yours anymore. Look at EU now compared to World War II. Yeah, that happened. But then at the end of World War II, we said these are going to be the borders. That was a big part of the United Nations. That was a big part of the post-World War global compact of we're not going to do any more empires. We're not going to do any more annexing of sovereign nations, Let's see here. Over on Twitch, we got Nebel Weber says, hi, I am from Germany. Probably you heard the results with extreme right party with 20%. For me as a left guy, I'm really scared of those Nazi parties. What is your American view on this, especially with having a right president too? And what is your view on the world situation, especially to USA, Russia, and Europe? Because I don't think that Europe lonely can defend Ukraine. I don't even want to think about us helping Russia. So yeah, you got a lot to talk about there, Nebel Weber. I did hear about the election results. I am similarly concerned about the AfD party doing as well as they did. But I mean, it seems like your far left party did a pretty good job too. So, there's some good news there as well. I hope that you are doing the work of trying to communicate and build support for the far left party, because I think that could potentially counteract some of the support that the far right party has been getting. Let's see here. And as far as how do I feel about having a right-wing American president, is I have been working my ass off for the past 9 years to push down the influence of the far right in this country. I haven't done a great job, but I would argue that I don't have enough people helping me. I think that a big part of this has to do with misinformation and propaganda that you find on social media. I would hope that citizens in Germany have a better media diet and are able to discern truth from fact better and conspiracy theory from bullshit better. And if not, I would hope that the laws that you have, around those sort of things regarding social media and, and the news can protect you from that shit. I think that if you can keep the influence of foreign billionaires like Elon Musk out of your election, that you should 100% do that, because we are suffering from our financial system being a little bit more of a Wild West kind of situation, where we allow these massive monopolies to exist, and we allow social media to just be the Wild West, where people can post whatever the fuck they want, and billionaires can change the algorithm to support whatever candidates they like better. So yeah, I would say try to learn from our example and just do the opposite of what we did. Dazfire says, do you think that Trump is serious about occupying Gaza, or is this a distraction? No, I think it's serious. I think what he's saying to Netanyahu is that, you helped me get elected by, continuing to fight this war with Palestine. And, even though the Biden administration was trying to negotiate a ceasefire, you were artificially keeping this war going because you knew it was politically beneficial for me. And so I am going to let you ethnically cleanse that area, and in exchange, I want you to let me build a fucking shitty-ass Trump resort and casino somewhere in there, and then Daddy can get a little money in exchange. Yeah, let's see here. Dan says, a big problem, in my opinion, is the UN proposition split Palestine in two, which Israel based its borders on. Now we're going a little bit over my head, Dan. I'm so sorry about that. My entire feeling on this issue has to do with who is the most powerful party? How do we stop the fighting from happening? And if we're going to go back into the, who did this and who did that and who started it and we were here first kind of a thing, that's where I get a little bit like, I don't want to fight about this, but I appreciate you seem like I have a little bit more expertise on the subject than I do. Volty, good to see you again over on YouTube. Why does anyone care about gold bricks in Fort Knox? This seems like a huge red herring. It's anybody's question. I think it has to do with some far right-wing conspiracy theories The thing about right-wing conspiracy theories and misinformation is that it's its own universe. And so if you talk to somebody who is like fully in that area, they will tell you things that are shorthand to the people who also follow that news area, but to the rest of us, it just sounds like fucking gobbledygook, you know? People will say like, oh, 2020 was a free and fair election. Well, what about the Israeli satellites? And we're like, what the fuck are you, what do you mean Israeli satellites? What the fuck? Not Israeli, Italian satellites. I think it was like Italian satellites or something. I don't know. Let's see here. Inverted Mystic says, why do you hate Elon so much? Elon is a privileged, shitty, entitled idiot who has stolen everything that he was not given on a silver platter. He has become an extreme right-wing ideologue, and he is using all of his money and power to push far-right ideologies that increase global chaos, hurt people in the middle class and below, hurt marginalized communities, all so that he can get more money and power. He is stealing from people. He is hurting people. He's a literal fucking racist. He, did a fucking, Schnazi Hitler kind of shit when he was on stage there. He is supporting the far-right party in Germany, which, as my German friend Nebelweber will say, like, you don't want to have an extreme right-wing party pop up in Germany for reasons that we all know about. So yeah, he's a shitty person. He's entitled. He's the worst. There you go. Alrighty. Inverted Mystic, do you have two different colors on your name? That's really weird. All right, let's see here. Augu says AFD lost. Let's go. I'm happy that they lost also, but we're worried that they increased their vote share. Let's see here. Dan says the far right is the demon of politics. I think you're agreeing with me that the ideology is bad. It's bad for people. It's bad for the world. Micmac says Trump re-educating countries on how our economies before income taxes were invented grew prominence. I don't know how accurate that is. Let's see here. Okay. Muhammad Lamotte says, do you think capitalism is good? So I do not believe that unregulated capitalism is good. I think that there are some good things in capitalism, but I prefer a more mixed model of capitalism that has some socialism in it and has some communism in it. I think that we should be incentivizing companies to be employee-owned, and I think that we should be, nationalizing certain industries like healthcare, for example, that we have seen do not work in a, privatized model. Making sure that people's air is clean and water is clean and that they can get health care when they need it without having to go bankrupt. All of these things should be the purview of the state because they have the ability to control it and do it well and without a profit motive fucking everything up. But, am I prepared to argue that there's like no positive qualities to capitalism, that, it doesn't incentivize innovation or whatever? I'm not prepared to argue that. I'm open to that argument, but I will say that the model that we have now ain't working, and we need more socialism and more communism. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Let's see here. Dan says, mixed economy is what got us here, not purely capitalism. Yeah, I agree with that, Dan, but the problem is that the way that capitalism has been regulated has been a lot of helping out the top 1%, helping out the people who are already really wealthy and powerful. We do have, social safety net programs like welfare, like Medicare, like Medicaid, but we give a lot of money to fossil fuel industries for no fucking reason. They're wildly popular. We allow massively popular companies, massively profitable companies like Walmart to pay their employees slave wages so that they have to go on welfare even though they're gainfully employed. And so that's just more of a tax suck on the American people, by companies like Walmart and stuff like that. So, where I think we can use more socialism and communism is in assisting the middle class and below. And if we want to get rid of some of that, like shitty regulatory capture and stuff like that only helps out people that are already hugely powerful and profitable, like I'm all for that. Like, let's get rid of that shit. Alrighty. Let's see here. Muhammad Lamont says, I agree with all those answers except for communism. Doesn't work. It is good to converse about. I don't know. We have a handful of employee-owned companies here in America, and they seem to be doing amazingly well. If I was a billionaire, what I would be doing with my money is starting employee-owned companies, and that is how we lift people out of poverty. That is how we make people not into wage slaves. That is how we make more equitable worker environments. You don't have the leverage to sexually harass somebody as the boss if the company is owned by everybody that works there. I think there was also I think the company's called Salesforce, where the CEO agreed to everybody that works there starts at $70K a year or something like that, and he cut his salary in order to facilitate that. And that's one of the most, I think well-liked places to work in America. They have zero turnover there, and everybody's clamoring to work for that company because it's such a great environment. On a more anecdotal level, I waited tables for 12 years, and I worked at restaurants that had both a pooled tip system and a non-pooled tip system. And what that means is in a non-pooled house, you make the money off of your tables only. And so if you get a lot of good tables with a lot of high rollers and a lot of big parties, you might make a lot of money that night. But the guy working directly next to you, who's working just as hard but just happens to get smaller tables or not as much turnover or whatever, he makes less money than you. And I hated working for non-pooled house because if I had a shitty section and I didn't make money, I was upset. But if I had a good section and I made a lot of money, but my buddy didn't make any money, then I was upset too. I felt bad for my friend not making any money. And anytime you asked people to help you out, you felt bad because they were essentially doing free labor for you so that you could make money off of these big tables and they couldn't. Now, in a pooled house, everybody helped each other because everybody's success was everybody else's success. And I don't know, it felt like a better model to me. I enjoyed working there more. The restaurants that I worked at that were pooled houses had lower turnover. They had higher employee satisfaction, So yeah, I think that we can use a little bit more of that. All right, scrolling down the bottom, Italiana74 says, did you see Don Corleone at the table today in his news conference? LOL. No, I did not see what you are referring to. Sean Manning says, why does Israel run the U.S.? Israel does not run the U.S. Israel has a lot of influence over the United States, and there are sneaky, nefarious reasons for that I don't know about, but I know that there is the incentive of being able to have military bases in that region. There is the threat of being called anti-Semitic by AIPAC. There is the threat of AIPAC Money, which is an extremely well-funded right-wing organization. So yeah, they have a lot of influence, but they're not, we're not owned by Israel. Zadie 2024 says, do you know when they are voting on removing telehealth from Medicare? I do not know about that, and I don't know if that is in the current bill that passed the House. I know that I think the Senate is working on their own tax bill, and they're going to do a reconciliation to kind of, hash out the differences between the two bills and then vote on them again. So nothing is a done deal right now. The Senate still has to pass something, and the House has to pass whatever the Senate passes, and then the president has to sign it. And if that is something that you don't want, if that is something that you care about, then I think that you should put pressure on your elected representatives to stop them from fucking, destroying your life and shit like that. Let's see here. Zach Med says, the left is victorious. You were saying that shit yesterday, man. Let's see here. Muhammad Lamotte says, do you know about the Sykes-Picot agreement? I do not know about the Sykes-Picot agreement. Sounds interesting, though, but so I'll give it a Google once I'm done with this live. Lexi says, what is your opinion of the SAVE Act? The SAVE Act is a national voter suppression bill. It is a national voter ID bill that the Republicans are trying to pass so that fewer people will vote, because when fewer people vote, then they do better in elections. There also is a stipulation in there that all of your documentation has to have the exact same name on it. So any woman that got married and changed her name would now have a harder time voting. And that's the nuts and bolts of voter suppression. There's the nefarious, you can't vote part of it. But people get very upset about that. But if you just make it harder for people to vote, you have the same outcome of fewer people voting, but you didn't actually remove anybody's right to vote. You just made it a little bit more difficult. And it's bullshit. They're going to say it has something to do with election integrity, but that is a complete fucking lie. We have seen study after study after study about this. There is no substantive voter fraud in this country that is actually swinging elections. It is like 0.0001% of all the votes that come in. And the voter fraud that we do find tends to be Republicans trying to vote for Trump like a third time or shit like that. Inverted Mystic says, like, I've been told by Democrat voters that I shouldn't just learn to code. It's so out of touch and stupid. Please just pay a living wage. I mean, I agree with the just pay a living wage part, but I'm not really sure Democratic voters have told you that I should just learn to code. That is going over my head, man. Inverted Mystic, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Like, are people telling you, like, just to get a better job or something like that? Volty over on YouTube says, what do you think are some key issues happening now that people aren't talking about enough? I think probably the purging of the military and the Department of Justice. You know, like, they're firing the heads of all the different divisions of the military and replacing them with people with no experience who are just loyal to Trump. It's a fucking abomination, man. You know, like, they're getting rid of 4-star generals who are in charge of these, you know, pieces of the military because they're black, because they're women, because they're DEI. The people who serve under them will tell you, no, these people earned their spot, they deserve this, and they are great. But no, they get to decide who is in those positions and who isn't, and they are getting rid of anybody who would tell Trump no when he says to the American military, go shoot American protesters. Go, those Democrats over in New York City, go shoot them. You know, and that's terrifying. It is utterly terrifying that is happening. And the fact that the FBI is now being run by both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who are both psychotic, inexperienced, unqualified Trump sycophants who, when Trump tells them, go arrest, you know, Jake Tapper, go arrest Rachel Maddow, they'll just say, okay. You know, go start a phony investigation into all of ABC News. You know, anybody who has left-leaning political ideologies on their social media, go start an investigation into them or go round them up and deport them or throw them in jail or whatever. Like, that is the thing that I think people should be the most concerned about right now. Mad Cat Monkey says, gainful employment allows for self-sufficiency. Most jobs in the U.S. aren't gainful employment. They're wage slavery. Yeah, no arguments there, my man. No arguments there. Dan says, hopefully you're not next. Yeah, I mean, I'm being saved by, by only having like 145,000 TikTok followers, and that's it. I'm kind of under the radar here. Let's see here. Jessica, have you heard about the Trump administration creating an undocumented migrant registry? I have not heard about that. I'm not surprised by that. That sounds like right up their alley. There is another Trump lackey who was just talking about building, like, concentration camps for people that they want to deport and shit like that. And, it's just like, I don't know how many times we had to say that this was going to happen before people started to fucking believe us, All right, guys, I'm going to call it early. I have to do these shorter because when I try to do a full hour when I'm on the road, I get really tired and my answers get worse. So, yeah, I'm going to do my outro and then I'm going to head out of here. But I want to thank everybody for being here and for leaving all your great comments and questions. Thank you for being a part of these lives. I love doing them. My regular schedule is Tuesday through Friday, starting at around 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is different now that I'm on the road. It's much more sporadic and erratic and unpredictable. So just keep your eyes peeled, and I will be back. I will be back regularly. Regularly. I appreciate any kind of support that you guys can give me, whether it is the free kind, like liking and sharing and following and telling all your friends how great my live streams are and that they should follow me as well. And if you can afford to do the financial kind of support, I appreciate that too. I have a Patreon that you can find on my website, jarrettberenstein.com. And, I have 2 patrons right now, which I'm very hype about. They are the best. And I have a store that you can buy things from. I don't believe anybody has bought anything from it, which is also fine. That's on my website too, jarrettberenstein.com. And you can send gifts on Twitch and on TikTok. Maybe YouTube too, but I have no idea. And just my heartfelt plea for everybody to not be despondent and to not be cynical. The game is not over. They want you to think that resistance is futile, and so tell them to fuck off and not believe that shit. Do the work, spread the word, spread the truth, spread the narratives that are actually going to get people out voting and voting for better politicians, for Democrats, for the Democratic platform. And, there are great organizations that are already doing this work. Indivisible, Run for Something, Vote Save America. Give some good progressive activists like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Jasmine Crockett a follow, because they seem like they have got their finger on the pulse of Resistance 2.0. And my DMs are open. If you had a question that I was not able to get to on this live, you can hit me up on my website, jarrettbernstein.com, or you can message me. My DMs are open and all that shit. All right, let's see if there's any last things that I want to talk about. Nate Harrison says, Trump, no CNN, and Democrats and MSNBC, stop the lies. No, Nate Harrison, that's inaccurate. Wait, are you agreeing with me or are you not agreeing with me? Because you just got the number 3 gifter badge. So do you like me or do you hate me? What's going on here? Mario Vara says, Democratic propaganda. What did I say that was Democratic propaganda? Let's see here. Church Christen Rampage says, what qualifies you to speak on politics? I know a lot about it. Mohamed Lamat says, thanks, because I did give up. I get it. It's a very frustrating time to know what is going on in politics. It's a very scary time. But remember that they want you to give up. And so, one of the easiest ways that we can send a giant fuck you to the billionaire class and Elon Musk, who's cutting all their fucking social services so he can put that money in his pocket. Suck my butthole, you weird ass fucking dork. I'm going to do the work to take this country back from pieces of shit like you. Dan says, thoughts on the Green Party shifting away from climate and workers' rights to just Israel issue. I have seen some pretty substantial evidence that Jill Stein is an agent of the Russian government, so I don't trust the Green Party for as far as I can fucking throw them. I also agree with AOC on this issue that they are not a serious third party, because all they do are these fucking bullshit, spoiler candidate, ego-driven, money grab, cash grab runs for presidency every 4 years. Like, why aren't you building up local support? Why aren't you running for state and local office instead? It has to be president? Come on, guys. So yeah, I don't really rate the Green Party at all. Mario Vara says, yet America voted for them. Some people voted for the Green Party, and some people more people voted for Democrats, Mario. I'm not really sure what your fucking point is here. Let's see here. Dan says, I feel like climate change isn't talked about enough in mainstream politics. I completely agree with that, but it almost feels like the sides have been picked in that issue, so it's like, I don't know if anybody needs to be convinced there. Maybe that's their logic. Maybe they just realize that it doesn't, sell newspapers to talk about it. It's just that it's the frog boiling in water thing. Like there's such a lag between the climate change policy and the effect, or the lack of climate change policy and the disastrous weather events and increased flooding and lack of nutrition in our food and shit like that. And so, yeah, it is a real fucking bummer, because I've been on this tip for a long time and nobody fucking listened to me, I guess. Let's see here. Okay, Mario Vara says, so yes, I rest my point, you are a Democratic propaganda live news source. I'm not, Mario, but I find you annoying, so you're out of here. All right, good riddance. Okay. All right, let's see if there's any final questions that I want to get to. Zach McLean says, why is what Elon's doing so wrong? All right, this is going to be my last thing. Why is what Elon's doing so wrong? Okay. So first of all, the agencies that Elon Musk is going after are agencies that are investigating him, which is sus as hell. DOGE is not a real government agency because it was not approved by Congress. The cuts and the firings that they are doing are not approved by Congress, so they are illegal. Additionally, the cuts that they are doing and the agencies that they are trying to shutter are agencies that help people in the 99%, the middle class and below. And shuttering those agencies help the top 1%, billionaires, giant corporations, terrorist organizations, organized crime. It helps deadly diseases get into this country. That's the shorthand, and they're liars. Like, they're all liars. All the shit that they're saying about all the fraud and abuse that they're finding, it is either completely fucking made up, misinterpreted, or vastly overblown. Like, they say that they cut 20 million from this deal, and it's actually like $3 million from that deal. I think I saw something on the news today that like 40% of the contracts that they have canceled are not going to save America any money whatsoever because they've already been paid for and shit like that. So yeah, it's dumb what they're doing. It's hurting people. It is only helping the worst people in the world. So and what they're doing is illegal and has absolutely no authorization. There's no oversight. There's no checks and balances. Like, it is completely antithetical to democratic governance. And it's that whole fucking poem. Like, first they came for this group, then I said nothing because I wasn't that group. Just because Doge hasn't cut something that you need, or fired you or someone that you care about, or hurt someone that you care about, doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It just means that it hasn't happened yet. So on that hopeful note, thank you again, everybody, for being here, and keep your eyes peeled for the next time that I can pop on to the internet and say hi to y'all. And thank you again for all the support and the gifts and the likes and the shares and everything. All right, give me a follow. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye. 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 Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.